She just wanted a seat at the table like everyone else. But every night she was the one serving, cleaning, and hearing. You're just another mouth to feed. While her stepbrothers laughed around the table, she washed the dishes, hungry. But it was on a seemingly ordinary day, when it felt like no one saw her, that the doorbell rang. And what that stranger saw and did would forever change the destiny of that forgotten girl. The smell of hot food filled every corner of the house. Rice, mashed potatoes, roast beef with thick gravy, everything steaming on the wooden table. The voices in the living room blended into laughter and light arguments, like any typical family dinner, except for Emily. At 11 years old, Emily already knew she didn't belong at that table. While plates were being served in abundance, she was on her knees in the kitchen, scrubbing a greasy roasting pan with an old sponge. Her small hands were red from the hot water and soap. They trembled not from the cold but from hunger. "Emily, get more lemonade for your brother," yelled Karen, the stepmother, without even turning around. Emily stood up quickly, wiping her hands on the hem of her oversized, stained t-shirt. It was always like this. She served. She cleaned. She listened. But she was rarely heard. Ever since her father had married Karen, everything had changed. He used to be quiet, but at least he was present. Now, he was a shadow, a silent figure, who followed orders. Karen, on the other hand, had two sons, Logan and Travis. One a teenager, the other nearly there, loud and demanding. Emily was neither her daughter nor their sister. Just an inconvenience carried over from a previous marriage. And that night, like so many others, she collected the glasses, stacked the dishes, and stood near the sink, waiting for any scraps. "What are you standing there for?" Karen asked, noticing her staring at the empty table. Can I eat now?" "If there's anything left, sure. But clean that stove first, it's disgusting." Emily swallowed her tears. She knew that crying would probably cost her even the cold rice scraped from the bottom of the pot. In the tiny back room where she slept on a thin mattress on the floor, Emily kept a notebook with loose pages where she drew girls with wings. It was how she saw herself, in the world she imagined before falling asleep. Girls who could fly, girls who ate with everyone else, who laughed too. But in real life, there were no wings. The next morning she woke up early, swept the sidewalk, cleaned the bathrooms, and still had to walk her brothers to the school bus stop. Only then could she grab her backpack and walk to school by herself. Late again. And it was there that something began to change, though she didn't know it yet. The art teacher, Ms. Clara, noticed the tired look in her eyes. "Have you been staying up late, Emily?" I just like drawing at night," she answered with a shy smile, trying to hide the real reason. During recess, she sat alone in the corner of the yard, eating a piece of hard bread she'd brought from home. It wasn't by choice, it was what was left from the night before. "Why don't you ever bring real lunch?" a classmate mocked. Emily didn't answer. She was used to it. Being invisible also meant swallowing humiliation. That afternoon, when she got home, Karen was furious. "The school called, said you've been sleeping in class, think this is a hotel, huh?" I wasn't sleeping, I was just tired. You're going to learn not to embarrass me. And tonight, you'll go to bed, with no dinner." The house was silent when the doorbell rang. Emily, holding a dish towel in one hand and an empty stomach in the other, peeked through the window. She didn't recognize the man. He was an older gentleman with glasses, calm, holding a black folder. Karen answered the door. "Good evening. I'm a social worker. We received a report about possible child neglect at this address." The world seemed to freeze. Emily didn't understand at first, but for the very first time someone had rung the doorbell because of her. "There must be some mistake," Karen said quickly. "This girl is my stepdaughter. Everything's fine with her." "Would we be able to speak with her then?" Karen hesitated. She looked over her shoulder and saw Emily hunched near the sink, her hands still wet with soap. The girl's expression said more than any words could. "Come here, sweetheart," Karen called with a falsely sweet tone. Emily walked slowly, eyes on the floor, her heart pounding like a runaway drum. Artur, the social worker, crouched down to her level. "Hi, Emily, how are you? I'd like to hear about your daily life here. Do you go to school? Do you play? Get some rest?" Emily bit her lip and glanced nervously at her stepmother. It's okay. Yeah." But her tear-filled eyes told the truth. Artur pulled out some papers from his folder. "The school reported that you often arrive late, look tired, and usually don't bring lunch. Emily, you know you have the right to be taken care of, don't you?" She simply nodded. Artur stood up with a more serious tone now. "Mrs. Karen will need to return with a team. This is standard procedure. If we find anything that violates the rights of the child, we will take action. Is that understood?" "Of course, yes," Karen replied, forcing a tight smile. After he left, Emily tried to return to the kitchen, but Karen grabbed her arm hard. "Look at the mess you made. Who do you think you are? Little princess now? Trying to get attention? I'll put an end to this nonsense." Emily swallowed her tears. But that night, for the first time, she fell asleep with a new thought in her mind. Someone saw me. The next day, Ms. Clara approached her at school. "Emily, did something happen yesterday? A social worker called me. He came to my house. He said I'm not a maid. He said I'm just a child." Clara knelt down and held her hands. "And that's exactly right. You matter. Don't ever forget that." In the days that followed, the tension at home grew. Karen no longer shouted, but she was even more cruel. She knew they were being watched. Even so, something was shifting inside Emily. The simple fact that someone out there cared sparked a small flame in her chest, and she began to write in her notebook. "Today I existed a little more. Today I cleaned, but I was also heard. Today I hurt, but I also dreamed. Maybe tomorrow I'll live." Then on a Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang again. Karen was out at the market. Logan and Travis were locked in their room playing video games. Emily, alone in the living room, opened the door with hesitation. It was Mr. Artur again, but this time he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman with dark brown hair tied back in a tight bun, her face calm but firm. There was also another agent from Child Protective Services. "Hi, Emily. Do you remember us?" Artur asked gently. "We came to talk with you again, but this time in a calmer way. Is that all right?" Emily nodded and opened the door. She wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do, but something inside her said she could trust them. "Can we sit with you in the kitchen?" "Sure, but can I offer you some water?" The woman smiled. "Not today. Today, you sit and talk. We'll take care of the rest." And there, seated in the very place she had stood so many times serving others, Emily spoke. Not everything, but enough. And in the eyes of Artur and the woman, Daniela, a psychologist, she saw something she had never seen at home. Indignation, yes, but also protection. At the end of the conversation, Daniela knelt down, just like Ms. Clara had done days earlier. "Emily, you deserve more than this, and we're going to make sure you get it, all right?" Emily nodded, and that night in her notebook she wrote, "Today I was heard. Today my voice didn't drown in dishwater. Today I was seen." On Monday morning, the house felt strange. Karen didn't yell. Her brothers didn't tease her. Her father, as always, remained silent in his room. It felt like the air before a storm, thick, tense, but quiet. Still, Emily got ready, picked up her backpack and left for school with her usual quiet steps, the kind that belonged to someone who never liked being noticed. But that Monday, she was noticed. Right at the entrance, the school coordinator asked her to go to the principal's office. Daniela was there, and so was Ms. Clara. Emily sat down, her eyes alert, her hands fidgeting. Daniela spoke gently. "Emily, we're taking care of your case with great attention, all right? We don't want to scare you. We just want to protect you. And sometimes, to do that, we need to change your environment." Emily's eyes widened. "Am I going to be taken away from home?" The question came out in a whisper, part fear, part hope. Daniela held her hands. "Emily, do you love that place? Do you feel safe there? Are you treated with love and respect? She took a few seconds to answer, then looked down. I feel like, if I disappeared, no one would notice. Clara discreetly wiped away a tear. No one should ever feel like that, Emily, especially not a child. That afternoon, Emily didn't go home. Clara drove her to a temporary foster home. It wasn't a gloomy orphanage like the ones in movies. It was a simple, colorful house with other children in similar situations. A temporary home. But for the first time, Emily had a room of her own. A real mattress, a soft pillow, a fresh-smelling blanket, a brand-new toothbrush, and no one told her to wash anything. Her meal was served to her with a smile. And that night, she ate all of it. Meanwhile, back at home, Karen lost it when she realized Emily wouldn't be returning. She called the girl's father in a fury, but he only grumbled, "They have the right." His silence hurt more than all of Karen's shouting. Karen still tried to call the school, the child services office, even the county. She wanted to tell her side of the story to anyone who would listen. But the more she shouted, the more isolated she became. The lies she had once swept under the rug were beginning to rot in the light of day. At the foster home, Emily spent her first nights not knowing if any of it was real. She wondered if the next day she'd wake up back on the kitchen floor, facing a mountain of dirty dishes. But she didn't. The weeks went by. Daniela visited often, always bringing something. A book, a hairbrush, or just kind conversation. Clara came too. Emily started therapy sessions with a counselor who helped her draw emotions she didn't yet have words for. Her notebooks, once filled with girls who had wings, now showed more skies. Some of the figures were still sad, but now there was space for hope. Then, one afternoon, while she was drawing in the dining room, a caregiver approached her. "Emily, you have a visitor." She looked up. It was Artur. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a firm bun, small, sharp eyes, and a face that held both strength and kindness. "Hi, Emily. This is Mrs. Beatrice. She oversees a family foster program. She'd like to meet you." Emily clutched the paper in her hands. Am I going to live somewhere else? Only if you want to. It's a safe house, there's warm food, and no one tells kids to scrub pans." Beatrice knelt down so she was eye level with the girl and said in a soft voice, "I was once a girl nobody saw too, and I don't want any more girls to go through that." Emily didn't answer right away, but inside her something was beginning to grow. Maybe, just maybe, she could be seen, not as a burden, not as a maid, but as a child. That night, she wrote, "Today, someone offered me a home. I don't know if it's permanent, but for the first time, I felt like I exist, and that's already a beginning." The car stopped in front of a small, single-story house with a white facade, a sky-blue gate, and potted plants hanging on the porch. From inside, the smell of freshly baked bread drifted through the cracked kitchen window. Emily clutched her backpack strap tightly. Her palms were sweaty, her heart beating fast. Beatrice, seated in the front, turned around and smiled kindly. "This is it, sweetheart. No need to be afraid. No one here will make you sleep on the floor." Emily nodded. She couldn't speak. Her voice seemed trapped somewhere deep inside her. As soon as she stepped into the house, she felt something strange. Comfort. It wasn't from expensive perfumes or scented candles. It was simply the smell of home. Something she'd only read about in school books. Beatrice calmly showed her around. The living room had colorful pillows, a wide couch with a folded blanket, and a TV playing softly in the background. The kitchen had fridge magnets with children's drawings, recipe notes, and happy photos. In the backyard, a fat cat lay sprawled in the sun. "That's Muffin. She sleeps more than anyone in this house." Beatrice chuckled quietly. Emily gave a small smile. Small, but real. They climbed a short staircase to the hallway of the bedrooms. At the end, Beatrice opened a door. "This is your room, all yours. If there's anything you want to change, we can fix it together." Emily stepped inside slowly. The bed was small but soft, with lavender sheets and a flowery pillow. Beside it, a flower-shaped lamp. A simple desk. New notebooks, colored pencils. A glittery pencil case. In the drawer, stationery paper. If you want to draw, write. Hang things on the wall, go ahead. This space is yours. Emily stood in the middle of the room, silent. It felt like a dream. She was afraid to blink and lose it all. But that night, there were no pots to scrub, no stove to clean, no yelling. Beatrice called her for dinner. The table was small with just 2 chairs, but there was rice, black beans, fresh salad, and roasted chicken. 2 plates served. One of them was for her. Emily ate slowly. Beatrice didn't ask anything, didn't mention the past. She just sat beside her, eating, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And in that gentle silence, Emily understood. Here she could simply exist. Days went by. She began to get used to the idea that there was a place where she didn't have to tiptoe, where good morning didn't come followed by a command, where eating wasn't a reward for obedience. She returned to school more regularly. Ms. Clara smiled every time she saw her in the hallway. Emily's drawings looked different, more alive, more colorful. The girl who once only drew wings now drew paths, open doors, outstretched hands. In the afternoons, she helped Beatrice with little chores. She watered the plants, fed Muffin, dried the dishes. But it was different. No one ordered her. No one watched her every move. It was trust, not obligation. One rainy afternoon, Beatrice found her in the room, seated at the desk, quietly drawing. "Can I see what you're working on?" she asked from the doorway. Emily hesitated, then turned the notebook around. It was a drawing of herself, standing on a sidewalk. Behind her, a gray house. In front of her, a door surrounded by flowers. "Is that you?" Beatrice asked. Emily nodded. "And the door?" "It's here," the girl replied softly. Beatrice stepped closer, knelt down beside her and wrapped her in a gentle hug. Emily smelled the subtle scent of soap, and something inside her finally let go. You have a gift, and a story you'll tell, one day, even if it still hurts for now. But not everything was easy. One morning, while putting away her supplies in the school cubby, Emily saw a familiar face approach. It was Travis, Karen's youngest son. "Hey, look who disappeared," he said, in the same mocking tone as always. "Living with that old lady now?" Emily didn't answer. "I thought you'd come crawling back to wash some dishes, but they actually kicked you out, huh?" Some classmates laughed. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Emily lowered her head. Even far from that house, some wounds still stung. But Ms. Clara saw it happen. She walked over, placed a firm hand on Travis's shoulder, and escorted him to the principal's office. Later, in the hallway, Emily caught up to her. "Miss, you didn't have to." "I did," Clara replied with conviction. "You spent too long, with no one to stand up for you. Now you have people who do." That night, Emily wrote, "Today they called me missing, but I didn't disappear. I was reborn. Here, no one measures me by how useful I am. Here, I'm just a girl. And just that is everything." She taped that note to her wall, right beside the drawing of the flowery door. And the next morning, the sky was clear, as if it were finally reflecting the new state of Emily's soul. It had been 3 months since Emily left Karen's house, 3 months since she had scrubbed a pot out of obligation, since she had slept on the floor, since she had been treated like a burden. Now Emily woke up to the soft smell of fresh bread in the air, to the lazy meow of Muffin stretching in the window, and to the gentle sound of Beatrice humming an old tune as she watered the plants in the backyard. Emily still didn't quite know what future meant, but for the first time, she was at peace with the present. The school, which had once been only a break between punishments and hunger, had become a place where she could grow. And Clara, her teacher, had become much more than an educator. She was a pillar, a bridge. One of the first people to say, with her eyes and her actions, "You matter." That week, the school announced a project, an exhibition with the theme, "Who Am I Now?" Each child was invited to express their journey through phrases, drawings, or short stories. When the idea was presented, Emily hesitated. She wanted to participate, but an old fear rose in her chest. The fear of being ridiculed. The fear that no one would care. She remembered the day Travis called her missing in front of everyone. It still hurt. That night, Beatrice walked quietly into her room, sat beside her, and said gently but firmly, "Some people laugh at everything, Emily. Because laughing at others' pain is the only way they know to hide their own. But you have a beautiful story, a story that needs to be told, and told by you." Emily took a deep breath, and she drew. On the day of the exhibition, the school was packed. Parents, students, teachers. Colorful posters decorated the walls. Tables were covered with craft paper and drawings, and happy chatter filled the hallways. Emily's drawing was quietly pinned near a window. It was simple, a dinner table with several chairs around it. In one of them sat a girl with loose hair and a light dress, smiling with her eyes closed. The handwritten caption read, "This time I sat too." Next to the drawing, a page written in her small but firm handwriting. "For a long time I ate after everyone else. I washed the dishes while hungry. I was told I was just a burden. But someone rang the doorbell, and that's when everything began. Today I understand that a child is not a maid, that love is not demanded. It's offered. And yes, I deserve to be at the table. Because life isn't only for those who shout. It's also for those who suffered." In silence, Clara read it. She couldn't hold back her tears, and she wasn't the only one. Many parents were moved. Some teachers exchanged glances with wet eyes. For the first time, Emily felt that her story had value, that her pain had not been in vain. But the exhibition still held a surprise. In the middle of the event, Karen appeared. Her eyes were sunken. No makeup. Her once perfect clothes were wrinkled. She clutched her purse to her chest, her shoulders hunched. She walked through the hallways looking for something or someone. Emily saw her. Her heart raced, her palms sweated. For a moment, all the memories came rushing back like a storm. The shouting, the pushing, the silence, the hunger. Clara quickly approached her. "Do you want me to ask her to leave?" Emily thought, for a moment, then shook her head. "No, I want to hear." Karen walked up to her, visibly nervous. "I saw your drawing. The school posted it. I had to come. I don't know if I have the right, but..." Emily said nothing. "I did everything wrong, Emily. I repeated with you what was done to me. Instead of protecting you, I put you in the same hole where I grew up. But you didn't deserve that." Emily looked at her. Her eyes were no longer those of a scared little girl. They belonged to someone who had learned to survive and now knew how to stand her ground. "I don't hate you," she said calmly. "But I also don't miss you. Because where I live now, there's space for me." Karen looked down, swallowed. "Hard, I understand," and turned to walk away. Clara whispered beside Emily, "What you did was brave." Emily gave a soft smile. "Not more than what I've already lived." That night, Beatrice made lasagna. She placed 2 small candles on the table, 2 plates and a glass of juice with ice. "All this just for us?" Emily asked, surprised. "Just for us. Because today is a day to remember." And there, seated in front of a woman who called her daughter without any blood ties, Emily felt something new. Belonging. She, who had so often washed dishes in silence while others dined, now had a place at the table, a warm plate, a caring look, a silence that didn't hurt. Before going to sleep, in the notebook that now rested by her lavender-sheeted bed, Emily wrote, "Today I sat at the table, and I didn't have to earn it through labor or silence. I sat, because I'm human, because I'm a child, because now I have overcome. And then she turned off the light, without fear, without shame, and for the first time in a very long time, with a whole heart.